Welcome to another edition of Diamond Kings, where we talk baseball news as part of the Sports Kings Media Network. My name is David Whitlock, and I am from Houston, Texas, a proud Astros fan, and I'll be moderating our panel as usual. Before we go any further, I do have to speak that one of our fellow panelists, or my fellow panelists and all the Sports King family wants to send our condolences out to one of our regular guys, Leroy. His father passed away earlier this week. In fact, of course, he can be with us today, and last week we weren't able to have a show. He was attending to that. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, Leroy, and your family as you go through this. And from what I've read on Facebook, your father was a great man. He certainly raised a great son, and we offer our condolences true-heartedly. So we have a short bench today, but we will press on. Joining us from Florence, South Carolina, is Michael Prosser. How are you doing today, Michael?
It wouldn't be an SK show without me, y'all. You know how it is. Of course, I do want to agree with you, David, on echoing our sentiments to our buddy Leroy. It seems like, every time we open a show, it's on a sad note. We gotta hopefully next time, guys and viewers, we're gonna be able to open it on a happy note. But again, our thoughts and prayers are with you, Leroy. Hopefully we can get you back on here as quick as possible.
Definitely. He's been in touch and he's dealing with everything about as best as he can. How are you doing tonight, Kelvin LaPierre from Arkport, New York?
Doing good, Leroy. I know it's a hard time. Head up, head held high. Your father wouldn't want you thinking bad, thinking why now, why this, why that. Head up, stay positive, think of all the good memories you had with your dad. Condolences out to you, your wife, your kids, your whole family. Letting you know we're all here for you. You need anything, let us know. We got your back.
Absolutely. Well said, my man. So we're going to move right into some baseball talk, and we are just past the halfway point of the season. So that's a good gauge to really look at the playoff picture and figure out who falls where. So I'll run through the teams that would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. And I'm going to challenge you all to tell me who are the posers that are going to fall out and who do you think that's out of the playoffs that could get in. And in particular, what key players, we'll talk trades later, but what key rookies and changes in personnel that you see right now could make the difference. So in the American League right now, our champions would be the Toronto Blue Jays, Detroit Tigers, and Oakland A's. Our two wild cards would be both out of the AL West, the Los Angeles Angels and Seattle Mariners. The Mariners are on a good run here.
Watch out now.
Position themselves strongly. In the National League, you've got a dogfight in the NL East with the Braves and Nationals within half a game of each other. You've got the Milwaukee Brewers comfortably ahead right now, about 5 games of the field, but that looks like it's going to tighten up. And you've got the Giants and Dodgers also either tied or a game apart. So that division that was 8 or 9 games a few weeks ago has tightened up. The wild card would be the other Giants or Dodgers, and then the Nationals would be the second wild card. And the wild card races, about 4, 5, 6 teams are all within 3 or 4 games. So we'll start with you, Michael. Who do you see among the field that's in that might fall out, or teams that are out that are now gaining momentum and might make it into the playoffs?
Well, when you look at the AL, I mean, first of all, let me just congratulate the Seattle Mariners. Holy cow!
They just swept the Astros badly. They just about 4 or 5 runs every game.
In the best Harry Carey impersonation that I could ever do. Holy cow! Nobody, I didn't see this coming. This is, a completely out of, left field ordeal. Having said that, since this is completely out of left field, this could be one of those teams that might drop off because, they're not used to being here. They're used to losing, 95, close to 100 games every year. Oh, excuse me. Some of that steak came back up. My apologies, guys. But when you get a veteran like Robinson Cano into that lineup, who's been in the playoffs, he's gotten that push. He knows what to do. That's also helping. But don't count out the Baltimore Orioles just yet. Yes, I know they're, a little behind Toronto right now. I think it's like, a 4.5 game lead for the Blue Jays, maybe even 5 right now. It's one of those things. Ubaldo Jimenez is starting to pick up his pitching. It's getting better there. Dylan Bundy is going to be coming off the DL shortly, probably within the next couple of weeks after the All-Star break. Nelson Cruz is completely, I mean, I don't think there's a Texas Ranger fan on this planet that is very happy with what Nelson Cruz is doing in Baltimore right now for all the things that he could be doing in Arlington. I'm not saying Baltimore's going to make it, but don't discredit, don't be surprised if Baltimore, kind of sneaks in there. And, I don't know if I'm kind of reading Kelvin's mind here right now, but I got a feeling he's thinking the Yankees might actually get in sometime too. Don't ever discredit it. Don't ever count out the Yankees, man. Ever. Don't ever count out the Yankees. That's always one of those teams where they'll make a deal, they'll catch fire. In the National League, I think it's pretty much set right now. I don't really see a team sneaking in, within the last minute, unless the only dark horse team that I have, and it's a really, really, really dark horse, is the Pittsburgh Pirates, but that's because I'm on a huge Gregory Polanco kick right now, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Now that makes sense. You shortchanged the Orioles. They're only a game out, with their success they've had this week against the beating up the Rangers pretty good. And then you've looked at the Red Sox and Yankees, who weren't ahead of them, but are both coming off sweeps. Both of them are completely scuffling. And there's some questions with the Blue Jays. So the Orioles are definitely a team to watch as they get healthy, even without Matt Wieters. Kelvin, what do you think about this playoff picture? Who do you see rising, falling, making it, disappointing their fans?
Let's see. Milwaukee is cooled off since the start of the year, and I called that. I believe it was show number 2 or 3 we did. I said that Milwaukee's going to cool down. St. Louis is going to catch them in that division and take that division over. St. Louis wins that division. Milwaukee scraps for a wild card spot in the NL is what ends up happening because Pittsburgh's going to catch them too. Pittsburgh they're a better team than they played the first half of the year. They're going to turn it around. They're going to catch fire. It's just like we talked about with Kansas City. Kansas City went on that 13-game winning streak. Then they seemingly lost 7 or 9 out of 13. So every team goes through this, just like Seattle. Seattle is a pretender. They are there right now, but after the All-Star break, Cano's only hit 4 or 5 home runs. They're there for now. But that can only get you so far when your power hitter is eventually going to start. When the season starts meaning more and more, your power hitter and your doubles hitter and your guy who's leading your team in batting average with, I believe it's 324 he's hitting out in Seattle, he's going to start getting walked in key situations instead of being not pitched around because it's early in the year and the game doesn't really matter as much right now. And then you get to the American League. I think Detroit wins the division, but Kansas City and Chicago get back into it. They turn it around. They make that a competitive division. Baltimore, I think, ends up winning the AL East, and that's the only team out of the AL East that gets into the postseason. I've written off the Yankees. They just can't hit with runners in scoring position. Their 3 big off-season signings are hitting a measly 16 or 17 home runs combined in the middle of that lineup. They're just not scoring. They don't hit well. Their pitching is hurt. Teixeira's hurt again. He just had his knee drained. He's back in the lineup tonight. We just sent down my man Solarte down to AAA because he's hitting $122 in his last 22 games. Dropped his batting average from 386 to 262 before he got demoted. I mean, we're just not hitting, so I've written the Yankees off for now. I mean, could they get hot? Could they trade and make it interesting? Yes, but do they? I don't think they do. They got to look at that pitching rotation. Out in LA, I believe that the Angels, they're on a tear right now. They win that division. Oakland gets the number 1 wild card. Number 2 wild card goes to somebody in the AL Central, either Kansas City or Chicago wins that second wild card spot.
That all about adds up. I would point out that the Milwaukee Brewers are tied for the most wins with the Oakland A's in all of baseball right now. So the Brewers they've had some ups and downs. They're still there. A couple interesting other notes. The Washington Nationals now getting Bryce Harper back. They already have the best run differential in the National League at plus 50. They've won 5 straight. They'd be in first place in the NL East if the Braves haven't won 7 straight. So those two teams are definitely separating themselves from the field, and that's going to be a fight to the end, I think. I think Detroit wins the Central easily. I think that it will come down to Toronto and Baltimore. Well, go back about 5 or 8 years, and it used to always be the other 3 teams, the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays battling. Toronto and Baltimore in the AL East. The AL West will go down to the wire, so will the NL West. And I do think the Pittsburgh Pirates will make a run here before it's all said and done. So you guys pretty much nailed it all. So let's transition from there and talk a little bit about sellers at the trade deadline, or buyers or sellers. You know, for instance, should the Yankees be selling? Should they try to deal some of these high-priced veterans in Ichiro Suzuki or Brian Roberts at second base? You know, guys that aren't in the long-term plans. And who should be buying? Read a good article this week that if you look after the Tampa Bay Rays, maybe the Oakland A's window is closing for this young team. All these guys are going to need more money now. Maybe the A's should finally make that strong move and make some acquisitions. And so we'll switch the order this time and let Kelvin get the first word. So Kelvin, buyers and sellers at the trade deadline.
Yankees are going to be both, depending on where they're at in the standings. They're going to be both.
Week by week.
It's going to be based on the standings at that point. If they're still within 6.5 games of the division, they're going to be buyers and sellers. They will. Ichiro you're going to keep. I think you see Soriano go because he's not doing anything. We're not paying his salary, so there's a potential piece that he could go somewhere else, help out a team. Well, yeah, but you got to think they're not paying his salary. Chicago's paying,
right.
So they're not paying his salary. So it's a free player for nothing. Yankees aren't going to get anything in return for him. So you dish him out. You keep Ichiro because Ichiro's hitting the ball when he plays.
Yeah.
Soriano's striking out. Seems like every at bat. Then you keep Roberts because you just sent down Solarte, and we just got Wheeler, who's a utility infielder. We also released Dean Anna today to make room on the 40-man roster. So you keep Roberts, you trade Cervelli as a candidate to be traded from the Yankees. He's a catcher. He's got major league experience. There's teams out there that need him. Chicago Cubs could be a player for Cervelli. The Nationals could have been, might still be, depending on their catching situation. I haven't heard much about their catcher who broke his hand, how he's doing recovery-wise. And then
Wilson Ramos should be back in the lineup here any day now.
And then I agree with you. Oakland needs to be a buyer. They need to be a big buyer to their fan base. Their fan base has been dedicated. I mean, yeah, they have all these memes about them where their fans are there in September. They're there in September, but as soon as October gets here, they disappear. They don't have much attendance during the season, but it's California. You got a lot of stuff to do out there in sunny California. Another seller is going to be another buyer is going to be the Baltimore Orioles. They're going to be a buyer because they're going to be in the division. They need to replace that catching power. I think they're going to need to replace it with a bat. Besides Cruz, he can't carry that team for forever. So they're going to get one more bat in that lineup. And then sellers at the deadline are going to be Arizona's going to sell again. And I want to say I can't think of the team right now. I'll think of it after Michael.
All right, well, you'll get another chance to speak later indeed. Michael, what do you think about the trade deadline? I know you follow the Braves pretty closely. Do you see any moves that they might make one way or another? You've obviously got an eye on the Nationals. And anything else you see from around the league?
Well, first off, the arms race out west. I don't know what it is about the West any sport. Obviously, you know, if you follow football, you saw Seattle, San Francisco in their arms race. Well, this time it's going to be San Francisco and the Dodgers.
Yep.
That's going to be, you know, if somebody makes a move out there, the other is going to have to reciprocate because that division it went from a 9.5 game lead for the Giants to a half game lead for the Dodgers. in a span of a month.
Yeah.
That's a serious swing of momentum. I don't know about you guys. That's a serious swing. So, everybody knows that the Giants have been talking to the Cubs about Jeff Samardzija. Whether that happens for San Jose or not could depend on that. That could cost that right there could make or break the NL West. Obviously they're going to have to catch up to LA's dominant pitching staff. I mean, that is, say what you want, that is a dominating pitching staff. Josh Beckett has seemingly found himself a little bit once again. You compete with a Clayton Kershaw. That guy's just on fire. You've got Zach Greinke still out there. Dan Herron. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you're going to follow that up with Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, and, like 3 other people. I mean, no. I mean, Tim Hudson's coming off of a broken leg, and he's almost 40. So you're obviously going to need, some pitching out there. As for the NL East, again, since it's so close of a race, one move could make or break that division. Obviously, you've got other teams in that division who are going to be selling. The Phillies.
Yeah.
The Marlins, again, they have to sell. The Mets, as soon as opening day's first pitch went out, the Mets were off. Like they were done at the first pitch. The Rays are going to sell.
They've already made 2 trades.
The Cubs are going to sell. The usual sellers are going to sell. And do the Astros have anybody to sell? I mean, they always seem to sell everybody. They've sold their team, and they're still not anywhere close to being,
They got more to sell.
This trade deadline it's either going to be one of the slowest trade deadlines because of how close the races are, or it's going to be one of the busiest trade deadlines because of how close the races are. These dark horse teams with these hot young rookies like a Pittsburgh, like a Southsiders, like the Southsiders in Chicago. If they make a move, that right there could make or break their team, like it happened to Pittsburgh a couple years ago. I think it was 2011 when Pittsburgh had that nice lead. Seemingly ended when that quote-unquote blown call at the Braves game, which, I still want to dispute that it was a right call, but hey, we'll get to that in another time. They traded for, I think it was like Cliff Lee or somebody, or not Cliff Lee, Derek Lee, and it completely killed their locker room. So, everybody's going to be worrisome about moves like that. Like I said, it's either going to be one of the craziest trade deadlines or it's going to be one of the slowest trade deadlines.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. And it's interesting you mentioned the Astros because I think they've still got a few spare parts to trade. It's about time that we're going to be giving up on a guy like Chris Carter. Now, I don't know what he can get back in return, but certainly he'd be a DH bat or a D.
I was about to say a lot of teams in the AL East are going to, or in the AL are going to be looking for another DH.
Right.
And the only thing about Chris Carter is he strikes out a little bit more than a lot of people enjoy.
Yeah, no, a lot more. He would have broke a lot of records last year, but he was so bad we benched him at the end of the year. And then we've got some arms too. Obviously, people like Cosart aren't going to be available, but Dallas Keuchel's had a good first half, and somebody we picked up on the cheap that we might be willing to move because we've got some pitching prospects, the Mark Appels and Brady Aiken we picked this year that eventually are going to filter up to the majors. So that could be there could be some more activity for the Astros. It won't be quite like selling off the Pences, the Oswalts, and all that, but they'll make some moves, and it seems to be what the Red Sox do because the Red Sox, I think, don't have the chemistry this year, but I don't think they have much to sell. I mean, you're not going to trade a Pedroia or an Ortiz. The rest of their team are kind of young fill-in guys for the injured guys. I mean, Victorino's broke down, so they're really in a pickle. Maybe they could trade a John Lackey. I don't know what his contract situation looks like, but anyway, so it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, when you get swept by the Cubs, that says something.
Right.
Almost no hit by him, too.
And 1 or 2 runs a game at home. It was an ugly series. So we'll transition from the standings and the trades. And the All-Star game is coming up here in, about 11 days or so. And the voting is coming down to the wire. I think it is July 3rd as we record this. Tonight at midnight, the voting ends. There's some some interesting voting results out there. I'll let you guys uncover them as you know or as you question. I have the results right here, so I'll call you if you're wrong. But in general, what do you think about the voting so far? Do you think the right guys are getting in? Who's not getting in? You think should be? Is there a different way to do this besides the voting? And this time we'll flip it back and let Michael go first.
Well, I mean, since it is an all-star vote, it is chosen by the fans. You obviously have to give the people what they want. If the people don't want to see Jose Altuve in the all-star game, they're not going to get Jose Altuve in the all-star game. Now, is that wrong? I mean, personally, I think, there has to be another form of that in there because, I mean, if a guy gets screwed, and it's not really, it may or may not be his fault. The one thing that baffles me the most is out in the AL, the catching voting is, the Matt Wieters was running away with that. Matt Wieters hasn't played in almost a month, and he's still got 1 million+ votes over Mr. Norris out in Oakland. When Brian McCann went over, when Brian McCann went over, I was sure that he would be, at least somewhat close to, hitting something, like he was in Atlanta because the Yankees have a more hitter-friendly park. And I was expecting him to be a lot higher in the standing when it came to all-star voting, and I was sadly mistaken. It baffles me that the fifth-place catcher on that list is A.J. Pierzynski of the Boston Red Sox, and he only has, at last check at about an hour and a half ago, 925,000 votes. What is going on with the catching situation in the American League? That's just, everybody's, I get it's a home run-driven spectacle. Yes, your Mike Trout's going to be in. Yes, your Jose Bautista. Your Melky Cabrera has a very good possibility of being in. I think Norris still makes it in as an injury replacement. But there's no real surprises when it comes to the AL roster. The NL roster, I'm still kind of, hoping that Andrew McCutchen gets in there, just because, Andrew McCutchen's one of those guys that is an unsung hero, despite the fact of how good he is. He's still, he's probably the most underrated MVP candidate that I can think of. I mean, the guy is just ridiculously good. Personally, I would rather see a guy like Jose Abreu get in over a guy like David Ortiz or somebody like that, which, by the way, Nelson Cruz is leading the vote for the DH. Suck it, Ortiz. You want to go to war, Ortiz? Apparently you've gotten a war with Nelson Cruz. Forget the Rays, you're at war with Nelson Cruz. But, I think the fans realize that, they know who they want to see. Not many people are going to watch it anyway, I don't think. I don't think, the luster of the All-Star game in any sport is dying, to be honest. But, it's nice to see. I always would rather watch the Young Stars game because you get to see the future instead of, in some cases, the past.
Exactly. And speaking of the past, there is one Derek Jeter, who's leading the American League shortstop in voting, certainly not by statistics, but by career numbers. And I'd have trouble arguing that him belonging at shortstop to start the game is the right thing to do. So we'll go out to New York. And Kelvin, your thoughts on the All-Star voting so far and who should be in and out?
Let's not get into the voting yet. Let me tell you how this should be broken down. All right, I get that the fans should vote, but it should be a vote like the 64, like you do your top 64 players at each position, just like they do with a bracket for the NCAA. Then you just vote based off of that. You put players against each other, and you just have people vote for a player. Then each number of weeks, you get like a 2-week span to vote for that player. Then you go down, they face another guy, and it just keeps going, so on and so forth for all positions. That way it's not a popularity contest. You're going up against other people. You get to see all the faces. You know who's there. You can look at their stats, click on it, all that. You can follow them, all that stuff. Do it that way or something like that. Don't just have it because if the guy gets hurt, the guy that he beat before fills in his spot. plain and simple. Get him off the ballot. That way he's not collecting votes still, even though he's hurt and should be an all-star. Okay, we get it. He would have been an all-star and all that stuff. But back to the voting now. Derek Jeter. I voted for him. Voted for him 10 times.
Good.
Sorry, I'm a Yankees fan, diehard Yankees fan. Sorry. Going to vote for the guy. It's his last time. Yeah. The fans know it. The fans appreciate him. I mean, fans can say they hate Derek Jeter all they want, but deep down you know that they respect the guy for what he's done for the game, how he's played the game. He is an ambassador for the sport. He's an ambassador for everybody. He treats everybody the same way.
Has yet to be cited for steroids. That's a plus.
And all that stuff. So it's a great way to go out, just like Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken wasn't having the greatest year hitting-wise, defensive-wise that he did when he first made it to the big leagues and was hitting and playing in 2,133, 34 games, however many that Iron Horse was. I mean, it's just a stat, and it's a sign from the fans that they appreciate you for the 20 years of playing you've done, for doing it the right way. So congratulations, MLB, for getting one part of the voting right, putting this guy and allowing him to be on the ballot, even though his numbers, he's not having a great statistical year. He's hitting in around 270, 275, but he's on base still. And then, but is Cespedes in there? Is he still in there? Is he still leading for the outfielders? Is he in there yet?
Yes, he is the third place in outfielders with Melky Cabrera nipping on his heels.
Okay, good, because I want
12,000 votes
last
separate.
Time I checked, he wasn't in there. I was going to say, he wasn't in there last I checked. I want Cespedes to be a starter, the guy I picked on our last show to start my team around. I want him on the All-Star team. Right. I voted for him. Back to into the NL. There's going to be guys that get snubbed. It's just like every other All-Star. There's always snubs that deserve to get in. Altuve definitely deserves to get in.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a workhorse for the Astros organization for 2 years now. I don't think he made it last year, and he probably won't make it this year because Robertson Cano is having another stellar year offensively and defensively playing second base. You got Dustin Pedroia. It's come down to a popularity contest, unfortunately. It's just like high school prom queen and prom queen. It's just like that. I'm sorry. That's what the NL, that's what the All-Star voting is. Until it changes, I think the fan vote should count for a certain percentage if we keep it the way it does. It should be a certain percentage. Then you have the GMs, the hitting coaches, and all that other stuff count for another percentage. Then you have the owner's vote, and the owner's vote counts for a percentage. And then you have the writer's vote. So you have 4 different percentages picking the All-Star players. So that's just another way to break it down.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought. But let's not forget, there's one other stat. The voting may close tonight, but then they pick, I believe it's 2 to 4 people. No, 4 people from each league.
5.
They put out 5 now? 5. All right, so it's 5. They get to go out and make a campaign. And that's all that you're voting for is based off the campaign. And yet that's another popularity contest, but I go for the best campaign in that because it's what the campaign is all about. I love that part. Do it that way. Make everybody campaign for it. And then pick the best campaign. That's what I do when it comes to that. Best campaign. David Robertson 2 years ago was High Sox campaign vote. I love that slogan, so I went with High Sox campaign. This year, what are we going to get? Last year was then 2 years or 3 years ago was a Nick Swisher campaign where he went all over. He was freaking on YouTube. He went to everything, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. He had stuff everywhere, billboards everywhere. He bought billboards out of town, out of New York City. He bought billboards in Texas and all that stuff. So that's just what I'm looking forward to now.
Yeah, that's some good analysis. The problem I have, I don't have any problem with the fan vote. I think guys like Derek Jeter definitely belong in the game. I mean, this is the fans' game, and that's the way they advertise it. The problem I have is then the part about it counting for World Series home field advantage. If you're going to make it an exhibition and all the fan vote stuff and the pomp and circumstance, take that part out of it. Make it for what it is. They substitute players in and out every inning to get everybody some action. This isn't a real game. Let's not try to pretend it is. So that's the way it needs to go. A couple of points just to tie it up. It's amazing how much, and I don't know if Bud Selig has to do with this, but the Milwaukee Brewers fan base has got a position player in the top 5 of every position, and their worst outfielder is number 7, Chris Davis. So Aramis Ramirez is leading third base. He's been hurt half the year. You got Ricky Weeks 4th at second base. He's a platoon guy. Mark Reynolds is second place at first base, ahead of Freddie Freeman. That's baffling, and Jonathan Lucroy at catcher. So you can mobilize a fan base and get some votes in there, and things happen. The most interesting race to me might be the designated hitter in the American League, because you were mentioning the Cruz versus Ortiz, and certainly Cruz is leading the American League in home runs, and David Ortiz his average is a little lower than usual. But then third and fourth, you have Victor Martinez and Edwin Encarnacion, two legitimate MVP candidates on two teams that are leading their division, unlike the Orioles and Red Sox. And they're 3 and 4, and they're not going to. It's going to be Nelson Cruz. He's got way too big of a lead. But I don't know how many DHs you can have in that game. But
well, how do you not put Edwin Encarnacion at third?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't play third. I guess they had Brett Lawrie at third, who's hurt.
Yeah, Brett Lawrie's playing third.
And then
Encarnacion's been playing a lot of outfield.
Encarnacion's been playing more first base when he does play. So he can play some first base things. They'll figure out a way to make it happen, but that's just a really interesting race. One thing, it's good to see Josh Donaldson for the Oakland A's make it. He's deserving. Going away with the third base there in the AL. Tough for Jose Abreu with Miguel Cabrera at that same position. Same thing happened to me with Jeff Bagwell and Albert Pujols for so many years. It was like, well, how do you beat Pujols at first base, even if you're Jeff Bagwell? And then the AL catcher will be interesting to watch, too, because, like you see, Wieters has been hurt. I think May 10th was the last game he played. And Derek Norton, it's a field of light-hitting candidates. Kurt Suzuki for the Twins, the hometown Twins, the game's in Minnesota. Maybe it should make Kurt Suzuki the starter, just to give them a token guy. Well, we're going to wrap up the show, but we're going to move to our off-baseball topic. And everybody, apparently, according to the TV ratings, more people watched the U.S. play Belgium in that soccer game than the average attendance for an NBA final game. So the United States was into it. I was into it as much as I could. I couldn't watch that game because of work, but I did follow the games I could. I'd like to hear you guys' opinion now that the U.S. is out. A, are you going to keep watching? And if you're assuming you're going to keep watching, because you guys are sports fans, I think you'll keep watching. Who are you cheering for? Who do you see winning? Now we're down to the, quote, Elite Eight. And this time we'll go to our soccer fan, Kelvin, to start.
Well, Tim Howard, thank you for the greatest game I've ever seen by a U.S. soccer player, period. That was spectacular. You kept us in it. You couldn't have done anything more to help us win that game. We had our chances. We just missed opportunities, just like Belgium did. But congratulations, Team USA, for making soccer even bigger now. I mean, go back to '99 when the women won the gold medal in the World Cup of soccer for the females. That started the little boom in the small micro boom that it was to female soccer. And now 2 straight World Cups, you've gotten to this round of 16. Congratulations, first time that's ever happened. You're just making soccer grow. Kansas City, I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm sure you did, how packed that place was. Dallas, AT&T Stadium filled up, I believe, with 104,000 people to watch the game on the big screen in Dallas. Chicago's, what is it, Stadium Field or Soldier Field was packed as well. I mean, you had places packed all around the world. RBI, the bar I go to watch all the games, all these sporting events when there's multiple sporting events on, was packed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and it was packed the game before that when they played Portugal and when they played Germany. I mean, we just packed the bar. I mean, you don't see that at that time of day at a bar around here. It's usually 9, 10 o'clock when people get out. So, U.S., thanks for the memories. Can't wait another 2 years to get back at it in the cup. And it's not the World Cup; it's the Golden Cup. Can't wait to get back at it for that. Let's go get that one. Let's drive some more fan base into this. But right now, I'm really ready to watch Brazil. I said at the beginning, Brazil's the team to watch, the team to beat. I don't think they're going to let the mistake they made the last World Cup happen here. So I think Brazil wins it. I'm going to continue watching, and that's the team I'm riding with is Brazil.
All right, Michael, what do you got?
Well, I feel very un-American for saying this because I didn't get a chance to watch any of the games because I was at work. Every time a game was on, I was at work. And unfortunately, I could not use the Jurgen Klinsmann note to get me out of the game against Germany. But aside from that, Tim Howard could run for mayor of any state, city, any major city. The guy could run for president tonight. He would beat Barack Obama in a landslide. I applaud everything that man has ever done for U.S. soccer. I appreciate everything he ever did. But more so, I appreciate the fact that we as Americans came together for a sport that we don't even care about. That's what's great about it, is that aside from that, nobody cares about soccer. I'm stoked to see the Euro Cup. Nobody else is, because America's not involved in it. But when America is involved, by golly, we are the hugest soccer fans, and I love that. I love that about us. No matter what we do, we're behind us 100%. But I'll tell you why we lost that game, because Tony Romo was watching.
Tony Romo was not
Yes.
there. He wasn't there. He has to be there.
No, Tony Romo.
You have to. He has to be there for you to lose.
He was there in Dallas. I have seen the photo. We got screwed by the ghost of
Tony Romo. No, he was actually
Romo.
at a golf tournament.
Yeah, okay. I will show you the photo here after this. That is a likely story. Then Tony Romo was a clone. There's a guy running around in a Tony Romo. It was a Belgian in a Tony Romo mask. No, it was not. Anyway, as we get off of the Stephen A. Smith-esque rant about Tony Romo, my pick to win the World Cup, or as they say in their native language, Das Weltcup, I'm going with the Germans. Mainly because it's the Germans. They're just going to blitzkrieg the hell out of everybody. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? I mean,
their defense,
when you have
their defense is going to hurt them.
When you have a guy whose full name is Bastian Schweinsteiger, that is the coolest name in World Cup history. Forget Nene, forget Kaká, Bastian Schweinsteiger. I'm probably not going to be able to watch another game of this World Cup because of work, but that does not mean I will not follow it. It's going to be an exciting 8.
Yeah, I think the top 8 is totally stacked. There's no soft matchups anymore. You had a couple coming out of the groups that were they kind of let their way in, but now it's the big boys. I heard most of Germany got the flu, and they're all going to be playing with the flu tomorrow, so that might hurt them. I'm going to go with my team, the Netherlands, Hup Huppeland. They're going to be the team that goes. They snuck by Mexico. They'll get their act together and pull it out. I'd like to see Belgium do well. The way, again, they did nothing but pelt Howard, and he did all he could to stop them, and no hard feelings there. I'd also like to see Costa Rica do well. They represented the only CONCACAF team still left, so Costa Rica, and then Colombia. I'd like to see Colombia beat Brazil tomorrow. So I'm basically picking every team that's left that you guys didn't pick.
I'm going to say. Well, I'm rooting for Colombia as well, because if you look at their previous World Cup experience, they've scored 5 goals going in, and they've scored like 5 goals in their first 2 games, and nobody saw this coming. I was like, all right, let's go for another underdog, but I just don't think Brazil lets what happened to them back in 1956, where they lost by 1 goal in the World Cup on their own. So I just don't think they let it happen to them again, because the fans don't forget it. Every time they talk about soccer, Brazil and World Cup, they get upset about it. So I just don't think Brazil has it in them to let their fans down 2 World Cups in a row, and the only 2 that they'll host.
Hey, Dave, real quick, I just thought of something. Going back to when we were talking about the trade deadline, watch Jake Arrieta get moved. After his no-hitter after his almost no-hitter, damn you, Stephen Drew, by the way. Damn you, Stephen Drew. After we'll basically call it a no-hitter because Stephen Drew doesn't even count as a Major League Baseball player.
Right.
So his quote-unquote no-hitter, the guy's been the only good thing in Chicago that's not named Jeff Samardzija. So, I mean, he's one of those pieces that, he's still a young enough guy to where he'll be able to help a team out as a younger guy that will still be able, be signed to maybe another 3-year deal with that team and still probably be, 27, 28, 29 by the time that deal's over. So don't be surprised if Jake Arrieta gets moved.
I think I agree with you, and you're right on the contract situation that he'd be a good piece. They could get a lot back for him, unlike an Alfonso Soriano, which are just going to get limited returns. Samardzija and Arrieta are two guys that have a lot of value. Well, we do have to wrap it up. You guys got a hockey show to do, so be sure to tune in to our entire Sports Kings YouTube network. Watch the Around the Rink show, our Diamond King show, of course. I want to thank both of you for being with us. Again, we missed you tonight, Leroy, and we hope to see you back soon. Whenever you're ready, we'll be glad to have you. By the time next week comes around, we'll be talking All-Star rosters, the All-Star game, another exciting weekend. Happy 4th of July. Happy birthday, America, and good night.